The fifth reason why top balancing is better is because top balancing allows more accurate balancing. The voltage of a cell of a lithium cell is pretty flat in the middle, and especially for phosphate cells where it's 3.25 volts, pretty much in the whole range. It jumps up on the charge and dips down at the discharge end. Those are the areas where the voltage changes more radically as the state of charge changes. So that's the best place to try to estimate the state of charge based on the cell voltage, is when the voltage changes a lot. So from that point of view, say, well, if I do it at the top or I do it at the bottom, it's the same thing. Not quite, for a couple of reasons. The first one is that the rapidity with which the voltage changes at the charged end is much higher than at the low end. That is, when you're charged, the cell will get to 3.4 volts in the case of a phosphate cell, and then within minutes will go to 3.5 and 3.6 volts. When you're discharging, the voltage sags, but not quite as sharply, so it doesn't give you quite as much resolution in the voltage measurement from which you can derive the state of charge as you can at the top end. The second reason is that in many applications, but not all applications, charging is done at a lower current than discharging is. And current affects the terminal voltage of a cell by having IR, voltage times current times the resistance drop, that makes you measure the cell voltage, derive an SOC, which is wrong because of the current going through the cell. And so you're not really looking at the open circuit voltage of the cell, you're looking at the terminal voltage, which is not quite right. If you're charging at a low current and discharging at a high current, should you measure the cell voltage during charging, that voltage is not going to be that far off from the open circuit voltage compared to how badly off it will be at the low end during discharging at high current. So because of the sharpness of the curve at the charged end, and because in most applications you're charging with less current than you're discharging, you end up taking a more faithful measurement of the internal cell voltage, the open circuit voltage, OCV, than you do at the bottom end. And therefore, if you're going to base your balancing decision based on this voltage, you're going to end up with a more accurate, more balanced battery if the measurements are taken at the top. The next reason is that balancing is more compatible with CCCV chargers. Those are constant current, constant voltage chargers, and that's pretty much it, what we used for charging batteries. Now, if there were such a thing as a constant current, constant voltage load, and I don't know of any, they may be, then it wouldn't make any difference in this point of view whether you're using top balancing or bottom balancing. But the reality is that, as far as I know, there are no such loads. And as far as I know, pretty much every charger is constant current, constant voltage. In another video, we talked about the 3 stages of charging. And we saw that you have to get to the 3rd stage where the voltage is constant and the current naturally decreases asymptotically down to 0. For that to happen, the battery voltage has to be the same as the constant voltage setting of the charger. For example, LiPo cells, 4.2 volts when they're full, 100 cells, that's 420 volts. So you set the charger for a constant voltage of 420 volts so that when the cells are full, the voltage decreases nice and easy, and they get full. That voltage is only going to be reached if each and every cell is at 4.2 volts. Because cells cannot be higher than 4.2 volts, though the BMS will shut down charging. And if they're lower, the total battery voltage is not 420 volts, so you never get to the constant voltage phase of the charger. So to take full advantage of the final phase of charging through CCCV chargers, you have to do top balancing, because it's the only time you get all of the cells at their top voltage. The next reason is that top balancing is compatible with unscheduled use of the battery, such as convenience charging, convenience discharging. Let's start from a scheduled use where a product is fully charged at night, for example, used partially during the day, then plugged in the evening and charged up all the way. In that case, theoretically, you could do just as well bottom balancing as you could top balancing. Let's look at the bottom balancing solution. You plug it in the wall at night. The cells may be at 10% state of charge. The charger, first thing it does is discharge the cells down to 0, balance them at 0, then bring them up until one cell hits the top because it's the lowest capacity cell. End. And the following morning you use it, fine, no problem. But suppose that there is unscheduled use where unexpectedly somebody needs to use the device. In that case, you may be lucky enough that the charger was already charging up the battery, and then there's some charge you can use it. But there's a significant chance that you all at once need to use the device as the cell were discharging or balancing, in which case not only there's no more charge than you started with, the little charge that was left, maybe 10%, is no longer available. And so you're much better off that when you plug in the device, the first thing that does happen is that the battery is being charged. Because even if it's not fully charged, you can still go use it for a bit. The final reason why bottom balancing is pretty bad has to do with a cheating situation. Let's say you're driving an electric vehicle home. You're going to, let's say you're driving it to your church. You're about to get married. And your cells are getting lower and lower, and finally a cell gets so low that the BMS says, that's it, you can't have any more. And so you go in there and yank out the wire of the BMS and drive to the church because cells be damned, I gotta get married. If the battery were top balanced, it was one cell that was too low that was telling you to shut down. And that cell will be ruined by the time you get to the church. On the other side, if you're bottom balanced, all of the cells were low when the BMS said, that's it, you can't have any more. You disconnect the BMS, you discharge the cells, even further damaging them, and you've damaged every single cell. So the difference is if you're going to cheat and ruin your pack, if you top balance, you've only ruined one cell. If you bottom balance, you ruined every cell.